When Max, the Tosa, watched his brother get adopted from the shelter, his heart seemed to break. He whimpered softly in the corner, his eyes trailing after the joyful reunion. The shelter staff watched and couldn't help but feel a deep concern for him. Lucky, Max's brother, was bounding into the car with his new family, and Max was left behind, alone and confused. Nobody could have imagined just how heart-wrenching Max's plight would become after that day. What unfolded next for Max was something none of us at the shelter could have ever predicted. Max lay curled up in the corner of his kennel, his eyes fixed on the door Lucky had gone through. "He was my best friend," Max seemed to say with his quiet whimpers, but no one could hear. The shelter workers came over with treats and soothing words. "Come on, Max, it's okay," whispered Julie, one of the kind staff members. But Max just stayed put, feeling more lost than ever. Max's soft cries bounced off the walls of the shelter, making everyone around feel a twinge of sadness. "Poor guy," murmured one worker as they watched Max drag himself to the fence. Every day, Max would sit there, staring at the road as if hoping that Lucky would come bounding back down at any second. But each sunset just found Max more disappointed. Max wouldn't eat. Julie worried as she looked at his bowl, still as full as when she set it down hours ago. "Try the chicken again," suggested Tom, another volunteer, but Max turned his head away. He spent his days ignoring all the playful nudges from the other dogs. Max just sat by himself, his heart aching for the company only Lucky had given him. The volunteers put Max on a leash and walked him through the yard, hoping to lift his spirits. Tom gently tugged, "Come on, buddy, it's a nice day." But Max just shuffled along, his eyes glazed over without the spark they once had. Every rustling leaf seemed to be a reminder that Lucky's mischief wasn't around to make him race and bark in delight. Often, visitors passed by Max's kennel, their eyes scanning over him to look at more lively pups. Max lay with a face so downcast he barely noticed them either. "It's hard to watch him like this," said Sarah, another worker, with a sigh. Max had once been a joyful bundle of energy, now reduced to a silent shadow of that cheerful dog. Julie couldn't help but worry about Max's health. She sat with him, gently petting his fur. "I wonder if you'll ever find your home, sweet boy," she said softly. She hated seeing him so blue, knowing his sorrow was eating away at him. Julie feared that without his spirit lifting soon, Max would just keep getting weaker, hidden in his own world of sadness. It was a cold, stormy night when Max refused to come into his kennel. The rain poured down, soaking him to the skin. "Max, come inside," Julie pleaded from the doorway. But Max stayed out, head low, eyes locked onto the fence. He seemed determined, like he was waiting. Julie watched him with a coat pulled tight around her, the sound of thunder echoing around them both. Even as the rain got heavier, Max stayed by the fence. Julie held out treats, trying to lure him back. "Please, Max, come here," she begged, waving the treats. But Max paid no attention. His gaze never left the road, and Julie's heart ached seeing him miss Lucky so much. The storm grew into a full-blown tempest, but Max remained unmoving, clinging on to hope. Lightning lit up the sky, casting shadows around the shelter yard. Max didn't even blink, his focus still on the distant road. Beside him, the clatter of the storm continued its relentless symphony. The other dogs huddled inside away from the noise, but not Max. Julie watched from inside, worry lines etched on her face as Max refused to budge with resolve so strong. The night was relentless, but Julie wouldn't give up on Max. She wrestled with his soaked leash, managing to drag him back into the warmth of his kennel. "You're safe now, buddy," she said, wiping her forehead. Max settled back into the corner, still dripping, but at least sheltered. He remained restless, ears perked, eyes still glancing towards the stormy fence outside, hoping for a miracle. The sun had barely risen, and Max was already back at the fence. His eyes were sharp, filled with hope. Julie noticed him as she walked in with her morning coffee. "Why do you wait, Max?" she wondered aloud, her heart heavy with concern. Max's vigilance spoke volumes about his longing. She knew he wasn't just watching the road, he was waiting for something or someone. Max's longing seemed to deepen, making every day feel more challenging. His eyes searched the horizon as if expecting Lucky to just walk back in. Julie could see how much Max needed his brother, and it broke her heart. "We need to think of something," Tom said, the worry evident in his voice. Yet, none of them knew what they could do to change things for Max. The shelter buzzed with excitement for the adoption event that weekend. People came in droves, eager to find a pet to love. Julie moved through the crowd, greeting guests and introducing them to the dogs. "Let's get you a home, Max," she whispered, with a hopeful yet worried smile. She hoped the event would mean a fresh start, but Max hardly moved from his spot. As visitors filled the shelter, Max remained in his corner, uninterested in the strangers around him. The other dogs barked and played, eager to catch someone's eye, but Max didn't lift his head. Julie watched, feeling a tug at her heart. She knew Max was missing something deeper than a mere home. He longed for family, and each passing guest only deepened his sorrow. The shelter was alive with the noise of people and dogs. Yet, all the excitement failed to rouse Max from his sadness. His eyes stayed on the floor while Julie kept a hopeful watch over him. She wanted something good to happen for Max, but it was like he saw none of the eager faces or felt the cheerful atmosphere surrounding him. A young boy stopped by Max's kennel, capturing Max's attention for the first time. "Hey there, boy," the boy said, kneeling down. Max slowly approached, sniffing the boy's outstretched hand. Julie held her breath, hoping for a spark of connection. Max's tail wagged, just a little, and the sight warmed her heart. But when the boy left, Max returned to his quiet, lonely corner. The brief moment of connection brought a glimmer of hope to Julie. She silently prayed it would mean change for Max. His tail had wagged, stirring something within him, but the moment faded when the boy moved on. With a sigh, Max returned to his spot, curling up again, leaving behind the tiny hint of happiness he'd shown for that instant. As the event wrapped up, Julie's smile faded. Not a moment of happiness had turned into a home for Max. People left with new companions, but Max remained in the shelter. Julie sighed, mentally planning her next steps. There had to be someone out there who could mend Max's heart. She wouldn't rest until she found that solution, determined to bring him joy. Julie approached Max's kennel, only to find it empty. Her heart skipped a beat as worry surged through her. "Max!" she called, looking frantically around the shelter. His absence was alarming, sending a wave of panic through her. She raced down the aisles, checking every nook and cranny, hoping Max was just hiding somewhere close by. But Max was gone, and nobody knew where. Panic swept over the shelter when they realized Max's kennel was empty. Julie wasted no time alerting the staff. "We need to find him," she urged. The whole team set out to search the area, wondering why Max had chosen now to escape. He had never attempted anything like this before, leaving everyone puzzled. They moved quickly, hoping to find Max before he got too far from their reach. While searching, someone found the gate at the back slightly open. "Oh no," Julie murmured, fearing the worst. She swiftly organized a plan. "Let's spread out," she called to the rest of the team. They prepared to search the surrounding neighborhoods, ready to bring back their lost friend. Each of them hoped that Max hadn't gone far, but the open gate left everyone nervous. Time was ticking. Julie and the staff began combing the streets, their shouts echoing in the evening air. "Max! Max!" they called, hoping they'd see his familiar shape appear. As they moved from block to block, Julie handed out flyers to anyone who would take one. "Please, if you see him, let us know," she asked, anxiety clear in her voice. Her heart held on to hope that Max would be found soon. As the sun began to set, Julie couldn't shake the feeling that she should have watched Max more closely. She blamed herself as the hours dragged by, with no trace of him to be found. The search continued long into the evening, their headlights tracing the roads like hopeful beacons. Despite everyone's efforts, Max remained missing, and the shelter's concern grew heavier with the night. Julie couldn't stop worrying about Max. He was all alone in a world that could be harsh to those without a safe place. Without Lucky, Max felt vulnerable, like a leaf in the wind. The team knew he was an easy target without his brother's comforting presence. As the hours stretched on with no sight of Max, Julie's fear only grew stronger, dreading what might happen. Meanwhile, Max wandered through the city's busy streets. He moved with purpose, determined to find Lucky. Cars zoomed by, honking loudly, as he navigated the paths filled with people. Max dodged tire after tire, somehow making his way forward. His heart raced, but he couldn't stop. Every corner turned brought a new hope that maybe, just maybe, Lucky would be standing there waiting for him. Exhausted, Max finally found a spot to rest beneath an old sturdy bridge. The shadows hid him well, and Max shivered in the chilly air. People passed by, unaware of the weary dog nestled in the darkness. Looking out from his hiding spot, Max remained unnoticed, his eyes tired from his long journey. He hoped for a familiar face to appear, though none came. Rain started to pour, soaking Max's tired body as he lay under the bridge. He shivered from the cold but stayed put, too weary to move. From his spot, he watched families pass by, holding hands and sharing umbrellas. Each group he saw added a flicker of hope in his heart. Maybe he'd see someone he knew, someone who cared, but the faces weren't familiar. Max rested his head on the cold, wet concrete, longing for Lucky's warmth by his side. The rumble of traffic above surrounded him, distant and steady. His ears twitched with every noise, but nothing held his attention like Lucky's could. Each car passing felt like another reminder, driving him deeper into fatigue. His eyes drooped slowly from the long trek, and he grew drowsy. Days slipped by, and Max's stomach grumbled more with each passing hour. Hunger gnawed at his insides, leaving him weaker by the day. He roamed for food, but city scraps were scarce. Every morsel was a small victory, keeping him going. As Max scavenged whatever bits he could find, his determination never wavered. Despite the challenges, his mission to find Lucky burned stronger within. Max trudged along gritty paths and worn tires, feeling the wear in his bones, but the longing for Lucky kept him moving. Each step was heavy but purposeful, his paws dragging but never stopping. It was as though his heart led the way, hoping somehow it would guide him back to Lucky. As much as he missed Lucky, the hope of seeing him again drove Max forward, each mile speaking of his unwavering determination. After days of wandering, Max found himself limping toward a small park. He plopped down under a shady tree, his body crying out for rest. Passers-by noticed the tired dog, and some even paused, feeling a tug at their heartstrings. Max, with eyes still hopeful, gazed wearily at the people, wondering if maybe one of them would understand his silent plea for help. A woman noticed Max and started to approach him slowly, her hand extended in kindness. Max backed away, unsure and still a little scared. From the corner of the park, a child spied him and promptly tossed over a bit of their sandwich. With gratitude, Max gobbled it up. He looked back at the child, offering the tiniest wag of his tail as a silent thank you. As Max lingered, a kind-hearted man approached, placing a bowl of water near him. Max, thirsty and parched, lapped it up eagerly. The man's gentle gesture made Max's heart soften. Slowly, he began to allow more people near, sensing their genuine concern and warmth. It was small kindnesses like these that started to heal the long, lonely journey Max had been on. A jogger happened by, his eyes catching a familiar image on a missing poster nearby. "Isn't that you, buddy?" he murmured, recognizing Max. He quickly called the number, notifying the shelter about the lost dog. A while later, Julie arrived with volunteers. Her face lit up with relief when she saw Max safe, sitting among new friends in the park. They knew they had to bring him back. Seeing the familiar faces from the shelter, Max glanced up, his heart still yearning for his brother Lucky. Julie gently coaxed, holding out a leash, hoping Max would trust them again. "It's okay, Max. Let's get you back," she soothed, trying to lure him closer. Though his eyes were still filled with longing, Max sat still, contemplating their offer, weighing it in his heart. Max hesitated, looking from Julie to the leash and back again. Finally, with a weary sigh, he allowed Julie to slip the leash on him. Exhausted from his journey, Max reluctantly followed her back to the shelter. Each step was heavy, filled with reluctance, but there was also a faint glimmer of trust in him. Back to the place he knew, but didn't want to stay. Once back at the shelter, the quiet longing in Max grew louder. Finding a chance, he slipped out again, an unstoppable urge guiding him, his heart set on the path to Lucky. This time, determination fueled his every move. Max knew what he was leaving behind, but the pull to find his brother was stronger. His resolve was clear. No fence could hold him. Max travelled through towns, his instincts guiding his path, each step fueled by a mix of hope and longing. Along the way, he met friendly animals who shared scraps and people who wished him well. These acts of kindness lifted his spirits just a bit, but with each sunset, he knew he had to keep moving, letting instinct and the faint scent of Lucky guide him. Max persisted, moving forward with unyielding determination. Guided by some unknown force, he unknowingly crossed state lines in his quest. The scent of Lucky felt stronger now, pulling Max along an invisible trail. Every corner turned revealed new places, but nothing could stop him. Max continued on, confident that every paw step was leading him one step closer to which he longed for the most. Max reached another town, his paws sore from the journey, but his spirits remained high. As he walked along the streets, he suddenly paused, his nose twitching in the air. It was a scent he had almost forgotten, one that took him back to days spent playing with Lucky. The familiar smell filled him with new energy, triggering long-buried memories of home. With a renewed sense of excitement, Max's tail started to wag faster. He looked around, trying to figure out which direction the scent was coming from. His heart raced, beating in time with his eager paws. Without wasting a moment, Max followed the trail, his nose leading him towards something that pulled at his heartstrings, something that felt like the home he had been yearning for. Even though Max was exhausted, there was a cheerfulness about him. He bounded forward, which was a clear indication that he felt closer than ever to what he was seeking. Every wag of his tail seemed to propel him forward. Just a little further, his actions seemed to say. In his heart, he believed that soon, very soon, he'd be with Lucky again, and that thought kept him moving. Max wandered through the town, his nose close to the ground, tracking the scent of Lucky. As he went, families from the neighborhood started to notice the lone dog among them. He trotted along with purpose. The curious eyes of the passers-by watched him, whispering among themselves about the determined little guy who seemed to be on an important mission. Intrigued by Max, children began approaching him with treats in hand, coaxing him with gentle and encouraging words. "Here, doggy," they called, hoping to gain his trust. Max, though focused on his goal, paused momentarily to accept the offerings. Their kindness added a spring to his step as he continued, little paws carrying him forward with renewed vigor and cheer, as if thanking the children for their support. Taking breaks on lush lawns, Max gathered strength to continue his search. The locals started to recognize the determined dog from printed flyers that had been circulated. As people talked about him, they began to watch out for Max, forming a sense of community around his quest. He was becoming more than just a lost dog. He was a neighborhood hero. Conversations about Max started swirling in the community. A kind couple named Joe and Lisa saw one of the flyers and then eventually spotted Max himself. They were drawn to the story of this journey-driven canine. Their curiosity turned into a sense of responsibility. The couple knew they had to act. Max's adventure had touched their hearts, urging them to help him on his quest. Joe and Lisa felt a magnetic pull towards Max. They approached him slowly, careful not to frighten him away. "Hey, buddy," Joe said gently, crouching down to meet Max's gaze. Lisa reached into her pocket for a treat, hoping to gain his trust. They were determined to support him. The compassion in their eyes spoke volumes, and Max seemed to sense their sincerity. Lisa extended a hand towards Max, offering him a gentle pat. At first, he hesitated, wary of strangers. But there was something earnest in her eyes that put him at ease. He inched closer, allowing her to comfort him. The couple spoke softly, soothing him. Max finally allowed himself to feel their kindness, a little warmth returning to his heart with that gentle touch. Joe and Lisa offered Max some food and a cozy spot to rest, providing the kindness he desperately needed. They decided to call the shelter, thinking Max might have a worried family waiting for him. As they dialed the number, Max curled up in their care, finding temporary respite in their company. It was as if fate brought him to this stopping point, with people who understood his journey. Julie received the call about Max, her heart leaping with hope. "He's with a kind couple? Really? Thank you so much." The relief in her voice was obvious. While Max settled in with Joe and Lisa, he basked in their warmth, finding comfort in their kindness. Yet, even with this budding joy, a part of him still missed Lucky. Max sighed, content but remembering his brother. Over time, Joe and Lisa began to see what made Max special. They were charmed by his gentle nature and the way he seemed to smile when happy. "Look at that wagging tail," said Lisa, noting how Max's joy seemed to grow daily. Yet, every now and then, his eyes clouded a bit, revealing a longing still present in his heart despite his newfound happiness. Max enjoyed the company of Joe and Lisa as they took him on neighborhood walks. "Come on, buddy," Joe encouraged, and Max trotted beside them happily. With each day, Max's bond with them grew, and it felt almost like he belonged. This companionship brought Max a sense of home, but deep down, he still harbored hope for something more, a reunion he longed for. Max often sat, eyes on the horizon, waiting for Lucky to appear. "Do you think he'll find him?" Joe wondered aloud, sensing Max's spirit. There was something inspiring in Max's resilience that moved Joe. This determination sparked an idea, filling Joe with a desire to help. Maybe he could find a way to reunite Max with his brother, and that drove him. As days turned into weeks, Joe and Lisa watched Max slowly open his heart. They prayed he would find peace, knowing he deserved it. "Maybe he's found his family already," Lisa mused, seeing the trust Max showed. Though longing persisted, Max began to sense that he might have truly found a home. The thought of something so permanent warmed his heart, little by little. One sunny afternoon, Max perked up unexpectedly, nostrils flaring. "What's that, boy?" Lisa asked as Max eagerly sniffed the air. His heart quickened with excitement and he tugged on the leash. Sensing something familiar, Max followed the scent, paws moving with increased purpose. His anticipation was palpable, and Joe and Lisa, sensing this change, decided to see where Max's instincts would lead them. Recognizing Max's determination, Joe and Lisa let him lead. Max darted forward, a blur of excitement, pulling them through the park and over hills with determination fueling his paws. "Wow, you're really in a hurry, buddy," Joe laughed, trying to keep up. They moved faster, Max's paws moving swiftly over the grassy fields, each step a sign that he was onto something truly important. Before long, Max spotted a familiar figure playing with a family. "Lucky!" The sight filled Max with a flood of joy. There was his brother, happy and healthy, with a new family. Max barked, tail wagging furiously. Lucky turned, ears perking at the familiar bark, a recognition in his eyes. Their reunion was a joyful one, filled with excited barks and wagging tails, a moment long overdue. Joe and Lisa paused, watching the heartwarming reunion unfold. "He found him," Lisa remarked, misty-eyed at the sight. Max and Lucky danced around each other, their joy unmistakable. Max seemed truly happy for the first time since leaving the shelter. Surrounded by the love he once lost, the brothers were finally together again. Somehow, Max's journey seemed worthwhile. This was the reunion he had longed for. However, Max hesitated, glancing back at Joe and Lisa. The unspoken question in his eyes was clear. "Will you stay with us?" Joe wondered, understanding the bond they'd formed. Lisa nodded, giving Max a reassuring smile. They knew they couldn't hold him if he chose family over them. In that moment, a decision hung in the balance, one that only Max could make. Max felt the warmth around him. Lucky's family, along with Joe and Lisa, welcomed Max with open arms. He found himself caught between these loving families, each offering its own kind of warmth. "You're always welcome here," Lisa assured him, scratching behind his ears. Max wagged his tail, feeling the joy of belonging in two places. Showered in affection, Max realized how lucky he was to have both families caring for him wholeheartedly. Finding a balance became easy for Max as he spent days basking in love with both families. During sunny weekends, Max and Lucky romped through fields, joyful in their brotherhood. "It's official now," Joe grinned after the paperwork was finalized. Max had found a permanent home with Joe and Lisa, yet remained close to his brother. Together, they celebrated Max's formal adoption, sealing those precious bonds with laughter and play. Max's life had blossomed beyond what anyone at the shelter could have hoped for. Joe and Lisa ensured regular visits with Lucky, keeping the brothers' bond strong. Max thrived in their companionship, his days filled with love and play. "You've transformed, Max!" Lisa exclaimed, watching the spirited dog frolic. Supported by those he cared about, Max knew he'd never feel alone again. His wagging tail showed a new life filled with joy and warmth. Max's journey to this moment had been marked by patience and loyalty, qualities his families now cherished. From shelter to city streets, his heart never lost hope. Joe, watching him nap peacefully, knew Max's world had changed for the better. "Family isn't just blood," whispered Lisa, understanding Max's journey. His path became a testament to enduring resilience, proving that family and love can be found in unexpected places. When Julie visited and saw Max's joyful demeanor, she almost burst with happiness. The Max she once knew was now a picture of contentment. "Look at you," she cooed, kneeling to hug him. Joe and Lisa recounted Max's journey, and the shelter staff celebrated his heartwarming transformation. Max had braved his loneliest days, and seeing him now, everyone knew his tale was one of true triumph and joy. Max's story began to touch hearts beyond his immediate circle. Inspired by his adventures, more people started visiting the shelter, eager to find their own tale of joy. The word spread, tales of Max's determined heart filling homes. "Shelter dogs have so much love to give," excited adopters shared. Max's journey illuminated the beauty of compassion, motivating fresh starts for dogs like him looking for a forever home. Max no longer lingered by fences, looking for glimpses of family. He had found his place. With Joe, Lisa, and Lucky's family surrounding him with love, Max knew his dreams of belonging were finally real. "Thank you," Joe often said, grateful for the joy Max brought. In unwritten chapters ahead, Max would always have a crew to call his own, happy memories growing from shared love and acceptance. In the heart of his newfound community, Max thrived. No longer the lonely shelter dog, he was finally complete. With every stroll they shared, Joe felt the bond grow between them. Max seemed to exude happiness, a permanent smile in his step. Furry and loyal, Max lived surrounded by affection, enriching his family's lives. His journey had come full circle, and Max was home where he was truly loved. Both families cherished having Max around, celebrating his resilient nature together. "Max, you're a hero," Lisa often told him during cuddle sessions. His journey from loneliness to love became a story shared with smiles. Wherever Max and Lucky went, joy was sure to follow, drenching friends and strangers alike in doggy happiness. Max's unwavering quest was now a tale of joy, belonging, and the power of family. Living in happiness, the bond between Max, Lucky, and Joe and Lisa became unbreakable. Max, who had once sought family, now lived it every day. He roamed the fields with Lucky, basked in the attention of his human family, and spread joy wherever he went. His tale, one of perseverance ending in love, stood as a testament to never giving up, a story filled with tails wagging and hearts united.